Welcome back to my channel, and this is the third video in a series of 3 having to do with right work. All of them are geared for generators and manifesting generators to a degree, but they're also applicable, many of the aspects of it, to people of any type. Today, I'm going to do a case study and look at 6 different human design charts of people that I have worked with either a longer period of time or a shorter period of time, but where I know at least some things about them. My philosophy is that you are not your human design chart. People are not formulas. And the last thing we want to do with human design is put anybody back into a box, even if it's a human design box, right? I mean, I don't want to do that. So when I read a chart, I'm always looking at the chart in the context of someone's life, in the context of, how they grew up, what have they done until now, what kind of personal growth have they already done, what are they aware of in terms of their own superpowers to date, right? And what are the challenges that they're aware of? And I think all of those pieces are very influential in helping us to understand what our right work is and what our right work can be. Because very often it's an experiment, right? You explore it. I mean, I know that I've been exploring and creating and doing different things, over the last 25 years, and then as an academic for years before that. And so if you're experimenting and if you feel that you are kind of going from one thing to the next every 5 years or something like that, I think that's actually pretty typical in our world today. And part of it has to do with the fact that our world is changing so fast that there are always new opportunities that are arising that didn't exist 10 years ago. So it may be that you will want to move into something because you're going into an emerging field, or you're moving into a new area in an emerging field. And I really want to support you to do that if that's something that you're called to do. There was only a brief period of time, I think, after World War II until maybe the 90s, early 90s, so maybe a 40-year period, if even that, where people really had what you might think of as professional careers, that they started with a company and they were with that company for 30 or 40 years, and then they retired, right? I don't think that's the norm at all anymore. And I don't even know if I would recommend that as a lifestyle. I guess it works for some people. But far more of us are very interested in how the work that we do in the world can evolve as we evolve, because we are a constant, process in motion, and we are always evolving. And so why not have our work evolve along with us? The very first chart that I want to look at today, you'll see it over here. And this is an example of what I was just talking about. When I take a look at this chart, the first thing that I see is this enormous amount of intuition that's coming in here from the head into the ajna, into the throat, through the knowing circuit. And then we also have the knowing circuit showing up in the gate 12, and also through the 2 and the 1 up through this central channel. So this person, when I just glance at the chart, has a lot of intuition. Not only that, but they have a lot of definition over in the sensing circuit. And the sensing circuit is right-brained energy. It's creative, it's intuitive, it's spatial. And so the number 1 channel here, the 3536 on this person, it connects the emotional solar plexus right up to the throat. And it's the number 1 channel for her because it's connecting the motor to the throat. And that's what makes her a manifesting generator. But these channels are also very significant because they are plugged directly into superconsciousness. But when you put those two together, what I see is someone who is right-brained, creative, intuitive, spatial, plugged directly into consciousness, probably gets lots of downloads, and has a deep sense of knowing. Well, when I met this person, she came to me for a reading, and then she became a client, and she told me about how left-brained she is, and she felt really stuck. That was the thing that she said. So I feel really stuck, and I want some support to get unstuck. And we talked about her career and what she had done and her modus operandi in the world, as it were. And what became clear very quickly is that she had trained herself into left brain dominance. Now, this is not unusual because we have a left brain dominated society that we have been brought up into. And, school does this. It teaches us our letters and our numbers and to do analysis and to do math. And we get that all at a very young age. And then we have it all the way through our schooling. And so we learn from a really young age to prioritize the attributes of the left brain. But it's very interesting because this person does not have a lot of logic in her chart. Well, actually, she does in certain ways. So she's got the 4, which is the beginning of the logic circuit. She has the 48, which is the gate of wisdom. And then she has this beautiful channel, which I don't really think of it so much as logic. It's definitely more about patterns. The 515, which has to do with natural order and natural rhythm. It's related to the natural world and the patterns and the cycles in the natural world. So it's not logical in the way that we often think of logic. And then she's got this beautiful 7, which is double defined, and Pluto's lighting that up. And that is also in the pattern circuit. And so for her, the patterns were evident, and that analysis and the logical side, and it was all very prominent for her. And that was a lot of the work that she had done in the world. She did find her way to working more with the natural world as a dog worker. So she did find her way to do that, but she hadn't found her way to her intuition and to the qualities of her right brain and that her sensing circuit can provide her with. And I pointed this out to her immediately when she had come to me and she said, I want to know what's happening in the next phase of my life. She's an elder and she wanted to have this, the next phase, potentially the last phase, to be meaningful in terms of her contribution in the world. And at that time, she was really looking at her right work at this phase of her life being more in the political realm, because there's a lot going on in our political realm these days. And she was feeling called to contribute to that. And I said to her, well, okay, that's great. We definitely need people who are doing that. But are you aware of how intuitive you are and how much access you have to right-brained, creative, spatial energy? And she kind of cocked her head and looked at me and she's like, no, not really. And I said, well, do you get downloads, like just fully formed ideas and you don't know where they came from? And she said, I do, but I don't pay any attention to them. I was like, well, that's divine inspiration. That's a divine blessing coming your way. And her eyes got kind of big and she's like, wow. And at that time, she was having trouble actually literally getting out of her left brain in this kind of focal gaze that the left brain has. And so I did some exercises with her to help her to be able to get more down into her body and to be able to open up her side view, her peripheral gaze, because when you do that, you move into a different part of your brain and you get out of that left brain focal gaze and you get into that more spatial right brain part of you. And so I did some exercises with her to do that, and she played around with that. And then over the weeks that we were working together, I kept encouraging her and asking her about what was going on with her in terms of her intuition. And by the time that we completed 4 months later, she shared with me that her perception and way of being in the world was completely different. And that what she thought she was going to be doing next as her right work, something in the political realm, she had been introduced to human design and to the gene keys. And as a result, she's completely focused on developing her skill set in those areas and in more of the spiritual growth world than in the political realm. And she's looking at what might she do in terms of that piece. I also pointed out to her that she has this beautiful gate 33, which is a storytelling gate, and it's very creative. And I told her that I thought her story would be a wonderful story for her to be doing to help other people understand that they can move out of that left brain dominance if it's not really right for them, and that there's a whole wonderful world waiting for them. And she's even done some human design readings, and I wouldn't be surprised if she went on to study the gene keys and started doing gene key readings and so on. And she told me that 4 months ago, before she discovered this about human design and I did her reading and we started working together, that she had absolutely no inkling that this could be her right work, that this would be the direction that her life was going in. So this is the power of what can happen when you do get a human design reading, when you understand your human design and you're able to take that in and have it influence you, transform you, change you, so that you can be more open to different possibilities. This was a perfect example of somebody who had been shutting off some of her greatest faculties because of the way that she had been conditioned. Now, the very first video that I did in this series, which you can go and watch here, had to do with the ways that we've been conditioned and how that conditioning gets in the way of our ability to even know what our right work is. And with this person, it was a very good example of that. Now, with this example, this person has a defined head and ajna also, and then she's got a lot of activations down here around the spleen. You can see all of that activity happening down there on the spleen. She's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the gates of the spleen defined, and 2 of them are double defined, right? So there's a lot of energy around the spleen. The spleen is the center for instinct and intuition, the immune system, and timing and right timing. And so that was what jumped out at me when I initially saw her chart. That with this complex wiring that's going on in that same area, there's a lot of individual circuitry there, and there's also some tribal circuitry that's happening at the same time. Then the 6124 up here, that again is individual circuitry that's in the knowing circuit. So when I first looked at this person, I wondered what might be influencing her in terms of those splenic gates. All of the gates of the spleen are known as fear gates. They all have different fears that are associated with them that largely come out of our instinctual responses to life. They tend to not be real time. They tend to be kind of set in the past, and they can be either our past from when we were young, or it could even be from our ancestral tradition or from our soul journey. So it can be from a past that we didn't even live, but nevertheless is influencing our experience in our lives today. When I first met her, she told me that she was in a career that she was burning out on, and that she had done that career largely because her dad wanted her to do that career. And she had an idea of what she wanted to do next, but she wasn't sure about it. And she also wasn't sure that she knew how to, or she would make the transition on her own. And so that is why she came to me for some support. So I could immediately see with this open emotional solar plexus that she's got over here that she could be influenced by her dad and her dad's emotions. And she told me that, yeah, he was, manipulative is a strong word, but that was the word, emotionally manipulative, in the sense of being like, oh, do this for me. You're my daughter. I want you to do this. This is what's good for us. This is what's good for our family. And she does have a lot of tribal energy in her chart. And also the community that she grew up in is definitely a tribal community. And so she has that pull on her that led her into work that really wasn't the right work for her. I mean, maybe it was for a while, but it wasn't something that came from her heart of hearts, and that it's good work and she's doing good work in the world, but it's not feeding her soul, and it's very stressful, and it was draining her energy. And so working with her around her right work, one of the things that I said was that for her to really look at her leadership energy, because she has this beautiful 31 here, which is the democratic leader, which is where her unconscious sun is. And then that 41 energy, which is her unconscious sun, is an energy for being able to imagine the future, right? It's visionary energy. In quantum human design, I think it is vision. And in traditional human design, it's fantasy, right? Or it's imagination. That's what it is. But it's this idea of being able to use the imagination. And she hadn't been using her imagination at all because she was in law, and which is very analytical and very left brain. And she does have a little bit of logic again, but not that much. And it's not really something that I would have said this person would go to. I actually would think that she might do really well either on her own or in a small company where she can have that kind of tribal energy feeling, but that she also has a lot of autonomy because she has a lot of individual circuitry. And as we talked, she realized that that individual circuitry, again, she's got a lot of that knowing circuit, had been really suppressed in her life, and that was something that she started to lean more into. You can see that her conscious earth is in the gate 50, which is tribal energy, and she's got it double defined, and it is an energy that also contributed to her aligning with what her father's wishes were. But it's also a teaching energy. It's an energy about values and about standards and about who we are as a people. And the 3 is a lot about innovation. There can be challenges at the beginning, but it's a very innovative energy. And that's her number 1 gate. It's where her conscious sun is. And so when she started looking for new work, one of the things that I had said to her, I hope it's going to be innovative. I hope that you're going to allow that individual circuitry that you have, that knowing circuit, and that gate 3, which is in the knowing circuit, that innovation, to be a big part of what you're doing. I don't imagine what you were doing in the law was really allowing you to do that. She was like, no. And so I really want to encourage you to do that. And she had an inkling of what she wanted to do, and it is far more innovative, far more creative. It's going to allow her to express that part of herself which got suppressed when she was trying to fit into the standards of her tribe and what her dad wanted her to do. And so a lot of our work together as I was supporting her was helping to unravel that kind of codependence that she had with her dad, and to be able to get more and more clear about that beautiful heart that she has with that gate 10, which is being lit up by the moon. It's her unconscious moon, which means it's what drives her. So that desire and that need for that self-love is really important for her as she's going into whatever field she's going to go in. And she can tune in to that inner tuning fork that's going to let her know, is she in alignment with her self-love or not? One of the challenges a person like this will have is that they've got a split between the head and ajna and then all of this activity that's lower down in the body. When people have this, it can be that you get pretty stuck in your head. This is how you can have someone like her be really of the mind and not really being all that aware about what's going on down here. Even though the gate is in the knowing circuit still, the ajna is very strong. It's the thinking mind. And when you go into a career like law, which she was in, that obviously privileges the mind and doesn't even pay attention to the body. So a lot of what we did for her was to help her get connected to the body as well. And she has that beautiful 46, which is the love of the body. And through doing that, she developed a regular spiritual practice that included yoga and dance and breath work and meditation and journaling and walking outside. And all of those things helped her get out of her thinking mind and down into her body. It also helped her to get in touch with the fears that were suppressed coming from the spleen center. That through the guidance and the work that we did together, that she was able to identify them and then really unravel those fears so that they were not orchestrating her life from below the level of her awareness, which is what can happen with fears and other kinds of conditioning and programming, is we don't even realize the degree to which it is orchestrating our whole experience. And so we were able to unpack and unravel a lot of those fears so that she could feel more confident in being able to make a career change of that magnitude. So you might want to look for yourself if you've got a split, and particularly if the head and ajna are split off from what's going on down lower in the body, because that can lead you to be disconnected from where a lot of your power and your other faculties are, that can lead you to understand what your right work is. One more example here of someone with the head and ajna that is disconnected from the lower body. This is someone who I didn't work with very much. I did a brief reading for her, and she was in a short program of mine. And the main thing that I said to her was, how are you with your power? Because she's got 4 motors defined, and she's got that defined head and ajna. And what I gleaned from the conversation I had with her is she spends a lot of time in the astral plane. She spends a lot of time in the spiritual realm. And so she's not so much in the logical mind, but she's more in the spiritual experience, if you will. But she was often out of her body. And I said, all your power is lower down in your body. You need to get in touch with that power. I think your life is going to change really differently. And she said, I'm so tired all the time. I said, well, you know what? You're tired because you're suppressing all the power that you have lower down in your body. I'm like, can you even feel that? And she was like, not so much. Not so much. And so my number one advice for her was to get grounded down into her body, because she has a lot of superpowers that are dormant down there that she's not utilizing, that when she gets in touch with them, that can give her a whole different perspective on what her right work in the world is. And if someone like this goes into being a spiritual teacher, for example, because they're drawn to that, but they don't get down in their power and they don't get down in their body, it's always going to be limited in terms of what they can provide to their students, because they're not really on this plane. And you want to be fully incarnated and in your body to be the most effective that you can be in your life. This person had a little bit of the opposite challenge, in that she was not aware of all this tribal energy that she's got. She was very aware of the intuitive energy that she had, and that's where she spent most of her time. But she wasn't aware of this tribal energy, which was what's really bringing her all this power down in her lower body. And that is another piece that I said, how are your relationships with people, your relationships with your family, people close in, do you have communities? And that was another thing that I encouraged her to open up for herself, because I thought as she did that, she might have really different experiences and be drawn to very different things in terms of her work in the world. And my intuition about what was going on for her was a little bit that she had learned to pop out of her body, because life when she was young was challenging and scary at times. And a lot of times people do that. They learn how to pop out of their bodies. And that's something that has to do with her conditioning that needs to be unraveled so that she can fully incarnate and be in her body and actually be able to use all of her natural superpowers. Now with this person, she's got an open head and ajna, and actually most people have an open head, and quite a few people have an open ajna, so this is a little more typical actually. And this is a person who has a lot of collective energy. You can see the energy coming down through the outsides and going outward down here on these channels, and then coming in. And then when it comes up through the central channel, there's more actually on the outer rather than the inside channel. There is more in the outer. So all of that is collective circuitry, both the logic circuit and also the sensing circuit. And this person spent a lot of time in corporate as a person, a salesperson, very high level salesperson, which I find interesting because she does have the gate 44, which is the energy for creating the environment for the sale. And for the sales that she was involved in, doing high-tech sales, so much of her work was about creating the opportunity for the sale. It wasn't so much about, having strong sales tactics, right? Not in that environment. It's much more about creating the right environment, the right opportunity, so that people can feel, oh, it's good for us to move into this relationship with your company and we will purchase from you. But it's much more collective energy. Even though the 44 is a tribal energy, she fit well into a larger company, global company actually, and she did very, very well in that environment, going through to different global companies. She did eventually retire, and she's had an aspiration over time to do coaching. She trained as a coach quite a few years ago. She did coaching with other people inside of her company as part of her job. She's had a few number of clients here and there, but it's always been tricky for her to be able to create her own coaching business on her own. And it's also been difficult for her to create her own business at all, because she's had an aspiration to do that through the years, is to have her own business. And that it's not really in her design to do that in the way that maybe somebody like me, who has a lot of individual circuitry, it's easier for me in that regard. That gate 44 is probably what enabled her to do sales the way that she did. That gate 44 will also attract the gate 26, which is its mate, and then she'll take that energy and amplify it. And that gate 26 is known as the gate of sales. And so she has that going there, but she doesn't have a lot of tribal circuitry other than the 59-6, which is really about, sex and sexuality and having children and providing for children. And she did all of that, definitely, but not in her work world. She does not have a lot of the commerce circuit in the tribal circuits. And she also doesn't have a lot of individual circuitry. So for her, if she wants to build her practice as a coach, which I know that she does, my suggestion would be to make sure that you have other people, like in a coaching circle, maybe other people who are also coaching, and you can be a bit of a think tank with each other, or other people who are in this similar realm or who are also doing their own businesses, so that she can have a little bit of that sense of being a part of a group that is doing it. Because I think that could activate some of that collective circuitry that she has and have it enable her, because doing this on her own is not going to be the easiest thing in the world to do. She will do well to bring some of the bigger picture into the work that she does, even if she's doing it one-on-one. And our last case study is someone who came to me for a reading and is working with me now. You can see she's got a open head, but a defined ajna, which is connected to the throat. But what I want to point out is she's got the 3420, which is the channel that connects the sacral directly to the throat. It's the only channel that does that. It's known as the channel of the manifesting generator, or the channel of charisma, or the channel of responsive power in quantum human design. She's got her sacral defined, but she has an open root and an open emotional solar plexus, an open spleen, and an open will. So she's got a lot of openness down here in the lower part of her body. She's got some definition here in through the center. And that would make it very easy for someone like this to become ungrounded if they weren't practicing being in their body and practicing grounding on a regular basis. She is definitely designed to have multiple projects. I don't think she's going to be happy working for someone else. She might be able to collaborate. She does have that channel of collaboration in quantum human design, the 731, also known as the channel of the alpha in traditional human design, but it's been renamed collaboration. So she can collaborate with other people, but she's going to probably be happier if she is more in command of her time, because that 3420 is really, really strong, and it's very strong in her chart, and it's very individual, and it likes to go its own way, and it wants to do what it wants to do. She's also got 2 of the leadership gates defined, that 31 that I was just mentioning, which is democratic leadership, or I call it the New World Leader, and the 38, in traditional human design, it's known as the fighter, or what's worth fighting for, which is why it's the Martin Luther King gate, or in quantum human design, it's the visionary leader. And so she's got a lot of leadership energy as well. And I think for her to be finding her right work, she wants to do something that's going to make good use of this powerful mind that she's got and all these ideas that she has coming in through that gate 11. And also to be able to be telling stories, because she has that beautiful gate 56. It's the other channel that she has. I think she's going to be happiest if she can express that love energy, that heart energy through that 731 coming right up into the throat, to be able to express her leadership with that kind of heart energy. She's also got that 38, which is in the knowing circuit. And so that's also individual circuitry. And that 38 combined with the 3420 is going to be giving her a lot of desire to go her own way, to do her own thing. And she has the capacity to be receiving guidance and inspiration and downloads from superconsciousness, both through the knowing circuit that she's got defined and also through the sensing circuit. Her number one gate, the 55, which is about abundance, trusting that you have all of the resources that you need, is also in the knowing circuit. The 3420 is in her incarnation cross. So not only is it a super powerful channel, wherever it shows up, the planet's lighting it up, but the fact that it's in her incarnation cross means that that's even more important. So for her to be able to grab a hold of all of this leadership power that she has and this manifesting generator power that she has, to be able to harness it and then send it where she wants it to go, rather than having it scatter her and send her all over the place, which is a little bit of the downside of having that 3420. Her chart is indicating that she is going to need patience because the gate 20, which is here on the throat, shows up not just once, but 3 times in her chart. So that means that while she's got all of this energy, fast energy, she also needs to learn how to be patient so that she can tune into what's going to be her right work in the world. Now, she's got this energy to express herself. She can be a teacher. She can be a leader. She can be someone who is really activating other people to be able to engage in things that are significant in the world. She has plenty of ideas that are coming in about that. She can tell stories about that. She just needs to discover what it is that is hers, that she's most excited about, what she's most passionate about. She has the gate of passion, the gate 30. What is she most passionate about? And then to be able to channel all of this energy that she has into that, and to embrace and honor and utilize all of these activating and expressive qualities that she's got defined in her chart. Now, I do want to end this discussion by saying that what's defined in your chart isn't the whole story. You may have heard me say this before because I've said it in several videos, but I only have one gate that is defined in the sensing circuit, which is the right brain. It's intuitive, it's creative, it's spatial, it's somatic, it's of the body. The love of the body is in that channel. And I only have the gate 33, which is on the throat. And yet, for me, incarnation, embodiment, and dance, somatic experience, all of that has been a huge part of my life. And I was drawn to it from a pretty early age, and I spent years developing my capacity in that. I was 2 classes shy of having a dance major when I was in college. I have been part of the conscious dance community for over 20 years now here in Northern California. And it's been just a huge part of my life. And I've studied many different somatic and dance and movement practices. And I decided at one point early on that I did not want to become a movement person, because back then it was really at the very beginning of the conscious dance movement. This was back in the 80s, okay, when I was in college, and I had a choice. Did I want to go in that movement direction, which I loved, or did I decide to go to graduate school and get my PhD and become a professor? Now, part of it was my conditioning to say that I wanted to go, and I was attracted to the life of the mind, and I knew what that path looked like. Whereas the other one, which I also was really drawn to, I mean, I remember one day sitting on the floor in the dance studio when I was in college, feeling that this is the first time I've ever felt like I could do this all day long and not get bored. That's a really good indicator for something that is your right work in the world. And I look back on that now and I think it could have been my right work if I had been able to see more of a path. And there are people who are my age or a little bit younger than me or a lot younger than me at this point who have gone into that somatic realm. Like there wasn't somatic-based psychotherapy at the time, for example. I mean, there just weren't that many movement-based and somatic-based practices and professions that I could see. Like there wasn't dance therapy back then. So I didn't see a pathway. And I'm sure that not seeing the pathway contributed to me not going in that direction for it being my right work. But if I had seen a pathway, it could have been. And that's not defined in my chart. So I want to underscore for you that where you're defined in your chart is not the whole story. And the other parts of your chart that are white can also give you insight about what your right work might be, based on what your inclinations are, what you feel drawn to, what you're passionate about. Like I said, I knew when I was dancing 6 hours a day, I was like, I could do this all day long and not get bored. So I could have gone in that direction, but I didn't. Part of it was conditioning, part of it was strategy, and part of it was maybe because I didn't have it defined in my chart. I don't know, that I didn't have a kind of inner really solid sense of that, right? It was something that I developed, but it would kind of come and go because places that are open in your chart, the energies will come and go, and you can call on them for yourself, but you cannot sustain them. And I don't really know, because I didn't go in that direction. I don't know if that would have been a good profession for me. But I do want to encourage you to look at the whole chart, to get to know the whole chart, not just the parts that are defined, and see if you might be drawn to things and have developed some level of skill and even expertise in areas that are not defined in your chart. Because if so, those could be contributors to your right work in the world, or even be what your right work in the world is. If you haven't had a chance to go and look at video number 2 in this series, here you can see it. It's the one that has to do with a series of questions that I ask that help you to go in and really look at what is true for you on the inside, rather than looking outward into the world and thinking, oh, where am I going to fit myself in? Going inside and getting in touch with what really lights you up and what you really want to do. So there's a whole series of questions about that. And then I also do a reading of my own chart and the way that I've come to understand it and come to understand my right work. And so that's this video right here. And I encourage you to go watch it. Many blessings, much love. Bye for now.